Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with daily technical update. It is Thursday the 15th of January. This video is for educational purpose only. There's no recommendation or advice whatsoever intended. So we had quite an eventful day yesterday in the US markets. We were down a bit, or we ended down a bit. We were down a bit, quite a bit more in the during a normal session, but it bounced back. And it was again the metal sectors that were doing quite well, given the fact that we saw new all-time highs in especially silver, but also gold were pushed higher. And that, of course, we could see that in the ETF. The silver ETF, the copper ETF, and platinum ETF, and the rare earth ETF sectors. So quite strong there. Another sectors that also had a fairly good day yesterday was the uranium one. Here is the uranium ETF that pushed a little bit higher. So some of these stocks I'm not going to recommend anyone, but Cameco, for example, were doing well, and BWXT, but it's not a recommendation whatsoever. Also, the agricultural business was also doing quite well, very strong yesterday, closed more than 2% higher. So any stocks related to that, not all of them, but some of them, especially machinery, were doing quite well. And then, of course, the oil sectors, given the fact that the crude oil and also the nat gas, especially here in Europe, was pushing higher. As you can see, here is the oil service sector led by SLB, and we have the oil. The primarily oil companies, exploration and production, Exxon, ConocoPhillips, and so on, were lifting the market higher. On the overall indices, let's start with Nasdaq 100, because that is the one that has the most interesting patterns developing here. So, a couple of times it tried to get higher and push above the resistance there at 25,830.35. Got rejected, and yesterday it was back below the falling trend line here, and it actually dipped all the way below the lower rising trend line here, tested it, and then bounced at the end of the session. RSI still has been rejected here, as we talked about the past few days, at the 60 threshold, so still slightly negative sentiment, given the fact that we actually were above right there, but then we were also back below right there. So it is very indecisive. However, we have a higher high, higher low, and a slightly higher high. So we do have a bullish trend. I just need to confirm there. I think eventually that it will break higher, but I want proof. It's not enough just to hope and think about it. Pre-market, we are up just 0.25%. We're bouncing a little bit here, as we can see in the future, above the 55 moving average. But also here, it says that we should be cautious a little bit. RSI not above 60 threshold. S&P 500 dipped lower yesterday, but bounced towards the end and only closed about 0.5% lower. And that was, of course, given the fact that the oil industries and uranium and other sectors were doing quite well, lifting the stocks. The IT and tech sectors were not doing so well. Pre-market, we are basically bouncing a little bit, still in a bullish trend, higher highs and higher lows here on the S&P 500 mini future. So it's still indicating higher levels, but it is stretched a little bit. The Dow Jones was basically unchanged. What was not unchanged was the small caps. The small caps were doing once again quite good, and new highs here on the Russell 2000 index ETF. So pushing higher there, and looks fairly strong. No divergence on the on the RSI indicator, strength indicator, indicating we could see higher levels on the small caps. So the small companies are actually doing quite well at the moment, and many of them are primarily focused on the home market. In Asia session, a lot of volatility, but didn't really get anywhere. Still bullish trend, slightly stretched, but still bullish trend. So a lot of action going on around 27,000. That seems to be a a key level. The Nikkei pausing a little bit after reaching 138.2 projection of this correction pattern here at 54,477, and still bullish trend. I think it will crawl higher, and I think we could see it above 55,000 sometime in the near future. EuroStoxx50 toppish yesterday. Let's see how it will open today. There's some support here, 5,895, around that, fairly strong support. We could slide back to test that. However, we are still in positive sentiment. There's no divergence indicating higher levels. And we can also see here pre-market that it is indicated higher here today. So let's see how it will fare throughout this session. DAX actually formed the top and reversal pattern here. We had a doji here, we have a bullish candle here, we had a bearish yesterday. So a top and reversal pattern indicating we could see a correction in the German market, and that could of course also drag the EuroStoxx50 a bit lower. We could see it maybe try to move back to around the 25,000. Will we get all the way down there? It's debatable, of course, but I think it's just a correction. I think we will push higher going forward into rest of January. You can see how it actually reached of the bigger correction there to the 138.2 projection at 25,466. So we are a bit stretched, and a correction is looming here on the DAX index. Unchanged pre-market, so nothing changed there. Euro dollar. It couldn't really get above the 38.2. It spiked a little bit above, but now it could test the support here at 116.10. If it moves back below the cloud area, well, then there's a risk down to the 786 retracement, 115.50.58 here, and the lower rising trend line in this triangle-like pattern it's forming here on the medium term. Negative sentiment on the RSI indicating lower levels. So keep an eye on that. It needs to take out the peak up there at just below 117 to really establish a bullish trend. Sterling dollar or cable, also a little bit indecisive here. It needs to get back above 135 to reestablish the bullish trend. Positive sentiment on the RSI, but it is in a declining mode. I think we could be range bound here for some time. You can see the 55 moving average coming up here, and so kind of giving some support. We also have the 200 up there. So the underlying sentiment and trend is bullish. It's just pausing quite a bit at the moment, and could do so for the next few days. It needs a trigger. Euro sterling. Sliding lower, couldn't even get up to the resistance area, bouncing area here at the 100 moving average and the falling trend line. I think we will see the lows here being tested and the 200 moving average being tested, and I think we could see it pushing lower to 86. The yen pairs that were strong earlier this week, yesterday, sat back a bit with the dollar yen after reaching 138.2 projection of this correction move here. Could test the support here at 157.85, and also the lower rising trend line still in a bullish trend. It is, let's remove this one, it's obsolete now. We are in a positive sentiment on the strength indicator, but as we can see, it's also stretched a little bit given the fact that it's now declining. So a little bit cautious there, stressed, but there is a risk higher. We can also see here on the weekly what it did, and actually spiked above this level there and then sat back. So be cautious a little bit. However, if it takes out the peak from yesterday, well, then there's potential higher above 160. Euro yen, more or less the same picture really. Spiked, didn't get all the way up to 138 here at 185.80. Can still do it, still in a bullish trend, but as we can also see here on the RSI, it's actually declining values, as we can see. So it indicates of a trend exhaustion. We just need a trigger for a correction, but for now the bullish trend is intact, and if it takes out the peak from yesterday, it will likely continue. Aussie yen, Also a little bit stretched there, as we can see. The strength indicator is slightly declining, indicating uptrend exhaustion, but for now we are still in a bullish trend. But you will see it's been almost a straight line for the past couple of months, only minor corrections. We could still see a correction down to test the lower rising trend line there, but as we can also see on the weekly, it is above any strong resistance levels, and there is potential up to the previous peak there in 2024, just above 109. Will it get there is of course debatable. The sterling yen also pushed higher, slightly divergence there. You see the RSI value didn't get all the way up there, so also stalling a little bit, and we can see that the sitting back now here a little bit, but we are still in a bullish trend. If it takes out the peak here from the 13th of January, then I think we'll see a push higher above 215. But you can see it is a little bit stressed given the fact that the strength indicator is declining. Let's see if we can also add, and this is how you can work with it, if we can add a rising trend line. They are not the strongest one. They are to some extent merely just guidelines, but we could still see them being tested, especially if they hit several times, then they become stronger and stronger. Aussie dollar also a bit sideways trading here. I can't make up its mind. Should I correct lower towards 66, 60, 65, 75, these support levels down here, where there are some, you see actually around this level here, 65, 80, 65, 75, some strong support, but we also have the 55 and the 100 moving average coming up. And it's not unlikely, given the fact that we have the strength indicator declining here, so we could see that, but it's quite a wide range, really. So if it takes out the peak there from the 13th at 67.30, you can see, I always add a little bit to it. And if it takes out that, well, then uptrend is likely to resume. Dollar Canada still hovering around this 55 and 100 moving average and the 50% retracement of this downtrend there. So can't really make up its mind. Should I push higher towards 139.50 and above the cloud, or should I slide back? You can see the 100 moving actually rising a little bit, and there's positive sentiment on the RSI, and the 200 giving some support, slowly turning around here. So maybe we're just sideways range trading in a correction mood here, that before next push higher. So that will be something to watch out for, but I need a break of these levels here. Let's also do that one. If it takes out the lows there at 138.50, well, then we could see it setting back a little bit further down to 138, possibly down to 137.45 possibly. But if it takes out the peak there, well, then I think we'll see it pushing higher towards 140. Sterling Canada also hovering around it's 186.65 area here, which is around the 38.1 retracement of this downtrend there. We have we have some resistance in it. We're actually above it. We're also in positive sentiment. It should push higher. We can also see 55 moving average turning around, 200 turn around, 100 starting to turn around. So I think eventually we will see a push up towards 188 at this level here, the 786 retracement and the 138.2 projection of this correction there. The Swiss franc, a lot of noise, but really not much going on. At the end of the day, spiked higher yesterday, but collapsed and ended back below the 93.25. Will it have another go? It might have. It's still negative sentiment. So in the bigger picture, it's basically just caught range bound here. So what it needs to really get its mojo going is to take out the peak from yesterday. Yes, I know it's quite a bit away. So if it takes out the resistance there once again, 93.25, maybe it will have another go higher. But that was a bit of a I wouldn't say disappointment, because I don't really care which way it's going. I'm not invested in Swiss franc, so but still a lot of noise and didn't really get anywhere. Dollar Swiss yesterday tested the 786 retracement there at 80.30. We talked about yesterday, it was quite up there. Didn't close above the cloud. We are in a slight bullish trend here, corrective trend. If it takes out the peak from yesterday, then I think we could see it pushing higher towards 81 area, these peaks here. But then we have the 200 moving average coming down there, giving some resistance. There's slightly positive sentiment on the RSI, given the fact that it closed above 60 threshold there, but it's just marginal. So I would be very cautious at the moment. So it seems to be some strong resistance here in this area. Will it slide back? If it takes out 79.50, then downtrend is likely to resume. Dollar index, almost same picture really. It needs to take out 99.25 for a push higher towards 99.72 and towards 100. If it takes out 98.42, well, then it could sit back. But then we have the 100 moving average giving some support there. The 55 is where we're trading, but the 200 declining. So there's a lot of clash going on here between the short terms and the medium term underlying sentiment, and that's what we need to observe for a breakout of this range there. On the metals, a little bit higher yesterday, but now sitting back. We can also see here RSI values have been declining, much higher over here than here. So we are a bit stretched to be honest, and now we can remove this one. I'll keep it for now. 138.2 projection of this corrective pattern here. We didn't get all the way up. We can still do it. And what I will still point to, look at the weekly, very strong bullish trend, but now it's weakening given the fact that we have the RSI values declining, indicating uptrend exhaustion, but it can go on for some time. So be cautious still. I would be very cautious to either go short or go long. I'm not invested here, so it's just a recommendation to be cautious. Let's see what will happen. Will we have a correction move? If we think this is the peak here for now, at least short term, we could have a little bit of correction move down to around 4,500, possibly lower. And this is how you can work with these levels. On the silver that was really on fire yesterday, is being hit by profit taking, almost reaching 1764 projection here. We reached just 93.5. I think there's a lot of investors, traders, speculators, and people out there think maybe we could get to 100, and it's not unlikely. I actually have a target written here on my desk that says 103. We could spike to that, but I'm not quite sure we'll get there. But it is possible because there's been a lot of fear missing out here. You can see massive move. I think we were up 7% yesterday. But here we can see on the weekly, I mean, it has tripled in just around 6 months. It's insane, really, and it's very, very stretched. So beginning to be stretched on the weekly too, so be careful. However, if it takes out the peak from today, then I think we'll see a push towards $100. Platinum didn't get up and test these levels. I actually did expect it yesterday, can still do it, but quite stretched there. Also, the spike downs here are higher and higher and higher, so there's still potential. So let's see. However, I think if it takes out to the downside, this spike down there at 21.52, then we could see it setting back further towards 2,000. Copper also stalling a little bit after spiking higher there yesterday, stalling a little bit. RSI values declining, as we can see, also indicating uptrend exhaustion, so be a little bit careful there. Also, if you're trading copper, it is quite stressed, as we can see here also in the weekly. I think medium to longer term, there is more upside potential for metals, but for now it seems quite stressed, so be careful. On the energy market and crude oil, WTI crude oil spiked to just below the 200 moving average and the resistance there at 92.59. So we are still below the cloud. We closed in the cloud basically, but positive sentiment. We are in a higher high, higher low, higher high. So we actually established a bullish trend confirmed by the RSI, but you can see it knocked back here. So it will take a little bit more to really turn around this overall bearish picture here. So let's see if it starts sliding back below the 58.80 and below the trend line there, then downtrend could be back in session. Brent crude oil also rejected at its resistance there at 66.78 and knocked back down, so more or less the same picture. It was above the 200 moving average though, and also back here in the cloud. So now trading around the 100 moving average. So more or less the same picture, but it looked a little bit more bullish. But it needs to take out and close above 66.78 to really establish the bullish trend, also medium term. Despite the fact that there's positive sentiment on the R side, we do have a bullish trend, higher, 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 low, and higher, high. Let's see what it can do here in the next few days, or will it slide back? And if it takes out 62.70, then I think we'll see downtrend resuming. The European nat gas, testing the 200 moving average here at 32.57 around. At that level, flirting with the resistance there, positive sentiment. I think it could push higher towards 34, maybe 35 even. Strong move there indeed, or will it be rejected? The next 24 hours could be decisive. US nat gas below the support here at 313 in the gap area here, could slide lower towards and below $3. Let's see about that. A little bit stretched there on the sell-off, but you can see all the moving averages are turning around, so maybe it could continue lower. The US 10-year Treasury yield sliding back, so still sideways trading here between the 410 and 421, and that's the breakout we need from this range for direction. On the European yields, just very quickly, we had a spike down on the 10-year down to 277, just above the 38.2 retracement there. The UK, can we get it up there? Sorry about that, my internet had a little bit of a hiccup, but let's move on to the UK 10-year. That has dropped lower and taken out the 437 support, and could now risk of sliding lower, or could potentially sliding lower to 427, maybe even 420 down here in the coming weeks after breaking this triangle pattern and the support. Japanese 10-year set back a little bit this morning, but still in a bullish trend. But as we can see here, RSI value is declining, so it is actually in uptrend exhaustion mode. But that can go on for quite a bit. So let's see. There's no top and reversal in place just yet. On the Bitcoin, established a bullish trend, higher high, higher low, higher high, and could be pushing towards 100,000 and could test it fairly soon, possibly moving higher. Ethereum also in a bullish trend, but still below the resistance there at 3,477. All right, that's all for today. A little bit of a long one, sorry about that. But have a nice day and talk to you again later.